Hey everyone, did you know that this year marks the 10th anniversary of the Best Ever Conference? This year's conference is gearing up to be better than ever. With me, the host of Unlimited Capital, Richard McGirr, I'm going to be teaching a Fund to Funds workshop on day one. Come and check it out. And of course, you can come meet me and all the other Best Ever podcast hosts as well. Seats are limited. Go grab your ticket now at www.besteverconference.com. See you in Salt Lake City. Grab your ticket now at besteverconference.com and use the discount code podcast10, all caps, one word, at checkout for 10% off. So let's get on with the show. So as you know, I'm your host, Richard McGirr, host of Unlimited Capital, usually on a Monday. So you probably heard my show yesterday, but you're maybe asking yourself, why am I listening to Richard on a Tuesday? Well, I'll tell you why. We're doing something a little different. Instead of bringing on a guest, we're pulling back the curtain on all the tools and systems that actually make all our work possible. And I think me as the tools and systems and capital raising and sales and marketing and technology, I think this is going to be a hell of a show because you know how everyone talks about the latest software, productivity app, the latest must-have app. And the truth is most of them sound great, but they don't stick. So in this episode, I'm going to share 2 or 3 things that are, the most important tools in our stack that absolutely, I'm not going to say like genuinely improve the way I work, run our business. Because my approach to capital raising and business in general is we use software to run our company. Because as you guys may or may not remember, I used to be a pretty big time digital transformation consultant. So that's a lot of corporate jargon for the people who go work with really large Fortune 100 companies and design software and processes for them. Like I used to do that for a living fairly successfully. I used to have a consulting shop with about 80 employees. I would do projects ranging, $1.5 to $25 million, working with like major multi-billion dollar processes at Fortune 100 companies. I have thought, as you can imagine, very deeply about the tools and systems that we use to go build Property Llama Capital, which is my capital raising group. We've raised about $75 million. Well, I should say my partner and I have raised $75 million over the past 3 years. And then at Property Llama Capital, we've raised about $25 million in the last 18 months, like solely under our own name. That said, when I was previously at the other firm where we raised the other $50 million, I'm the one who designed all the onboarding. I'm the one who set up the CRM. I'm the one who did everything like that. So I would say that we have a technical infrastructure and a level of sophistication around our tooling, to use some more jargon, our digital tooling, that would be from a company many times our size. So everything I talk about now, this isn't an affiliate link. This isn't even a sponsorship. It's just what's proven itself in our business over time. I'm going to break down what each one does and how we use it in the business every day to, like I said, software runs our business. So whether you're a founder, an investor, or, you're just trying to optimize your workflow, my hope is that you leave here today with a few ideas to make your week run smoother and help grow and scale your business. Now, I'm also going to leave a disclaimer saying that, obviously, given my background, we use very sophisticated tools. I'm not going to say necessarily even very expensive tools because I'm actually a pretty big penny pincher when it comes to buying software. Because I'm also a nightmare to sell software to because I ask all the questions in advance. I get very far into sales discussions with all of their consulting and teams. And then most of the time I say no, because there's huge costs to not just buying software. Actually, most of the cost is in your management time and hiring consultants to get it like implemented and use it. And that I think, okay, this is a stat I heard once. Don't quote me on the exact percentage, but like 80 to 90% of software implementations fail and fail spectacularly and expensively. I definitely learned that in my previous career. And so I am super careful about the tools that I bring into the business and how we use them. And I only do it when I have a huge amount of conviction. I would also say that we probably are doing things where unless you have another person like me who is like part of your management team in order to manage these projects and set up the software, everything I'm doing may not be a fit for you. However, I think you'll definitely learn something in terms of like how we're using this tool, and you're definitely going to walk away with ideas and at least what I'm trying to accomplish, and that in your own way, you can figure out how to adopt this mentality. Though, like the first tool on my list is Salesforce.com. I'm going to come out and say that the chances are that Salesforce.com is the right CRM for you and your business. For the people listening to this show, it's probably not the right tool for your business. You should probably go with something a little more of a small business CRM like HubSpot or something like that. But nonetheless, I will now get started. So why am I starting with Salesforce.com? I'm starting with Salesforce.com because, we are a capital raising business. That's one of the beautiful parts of being a fund of funds manager, is that we are as close to a pure play capital raising company as it gets. I did that very intentionally in terms of business model selection. I actually learned that from the first firm we were at. I was like, this is a great model. Like, all we focus on is, obviously we have to produce great returns, and we've got to curate great investments and do DD and make sure that our investments are successful. But that compared to actually operating deals and stuff like that, once my capital is placed, I'm moving on. I'm raising more capital. So yeah, for a business like mine, the CRM is the heart and soul of the business. And because it's the heart and soul of the business is why I chose Salesforce.com. I will connect the dots on that for you guys. So Salesforce.com, the way that I like to describe it is it has the technical capabilities of an F-22 Raptor, and the sophistication, incredibly advanced aircraft and technological marvel. However, it is delivered to you, shipped in a bunch of parts in a bunch of different containers. It has, I think, basically zero workflows out of the box, practically zero reports out of the box. That is not the idea that you're just going to buy Salesforce.com and then throw it at your team or yourself and start using it. You're going to fail. Salesforce is supposed to be spec'd and designed by a person that knows how to use it, because it even has its own programming language like Apex, which is a variant of Java. See, I probably already lost 70% of the people talking here. But that's just one example. It is an unbelievably complicated and powerful tool. I should have used those in order, in a different order. I should have said powerful and complicated, because the nature of software systems is that there is a one-axis continuum, in my opinion, and this is people, I'm not the guy who invented this saying. There's a one-axis continuum of easy to use and hard to use. And I'm kind of, putting the cart before the horse, but that's very simple systems that don't do very much are very easy to use, because there aren't thousands of parameters, and Salesforce.com probably has multiple thousand parameters that are configurable. And then on the other side, you have extremely powerful software applications, which can do literally anything. On Salesforce.com, you could program Minecraft in JavaScript and then have it, or a Minecraft clone, and then play it in the Salesforce interface, with their, what do they call it? Visual Force, their version of Java or JavaScript, excuse me. They've got their own front end programming language, their own back end programming language. So enough about me scaring you. But for me as a person who knows how to use this stuff, that means that what I've created with Salesforce.com is the operating system of our entire business. Let's start with some examples. One of the first things we do is that we have very tight process enforcement, and I mean sales processes and fund admin onboarding processes, through what's called field validation rules. And so that means that I'm allowed to have in Salesforce very complicated formulas about something you cannot, this doesn't even sound that complicated when I say it, but showing a warning if I create an opportunity where it'll make the portion of 401k and RIA accounts over 25% of the fund, which, you should not do that. That causes a whole bunch of problems, that it'll show a warning in the system. I could even make it so that a manager's approval would be required if someone were to create an opportunity for let's say $200,000 RIA investment, except that if this goes to close one, so if we close the deal and win the deal, that it would push, the percentage of qualified plans above 25%. I can prevent that from happening. I can prevent it from even getting into onboarding. Another thing that we do, for example, is force people to mark a share class before something is closed won. Something else we do is we're able to use all the account lookups to basically we have a mirror of all of our fund data and AUM data in salesforce.com, so that like as an executive, executives usually the way that a modern executive is supposed to work is running their business through dashboards. And it's ideally like dashboards on one platform, because I shouldn't have to log in here and log in here. And sometimes you also need to do lookups from one system to another in order to like put together a composite table of it's called a join of I need something from my investor portal with a lookup to the accounts and contacts in the CRM. And this creates a table which shows the number of total investors I have in a fund and what my AUM is. And then I'm able to also like extrapolate what my estimated monthly carried interest is. Like I have dashboards that show me in detail, I'll just start in no particular order. One, the daily activities of the salesperson or salespeople in my firm. What this enables me to do is have micromanagement at scale. That means that I'm able to, through these validations and through the level of reporting I do, and then also having these reports automatically posted to Slack every day, like daily and weekly activities, is that I don't have to like grill my sales guy about, did you make enough calls today? Or like, where are we at? Because that just gets automatically thrown into Slack. And that obviously my sales guy knows that at 9 a.m. every morning, I'm going to post the weekly numbers. And then at 5 p.m., I post his daily numbers. And so that I'll put it this way. When we deployed that, our number of calls made per day on average tripled and stayed tripled permanently. That's just an example of using like software to, micromanage, because otherwise you'd need like a sales manager, or I'd have to do it. And it takes a lot of time to manage a sales guy properly. Like it's very time intensive to manage a sales team. And so if I just have these little bots reporting these guys statistics and keeping them on track, that can reduce 80% of the time I have to spend managing my sales team. So the other things that I like to do is I've got dashboards showing me, for example, last month, what was the percentage between compounding and reinvesting in my debt funds? What were the various sources of funds? So was it like last month I got, just making up numbers here, but like 30% of the funds we raised came from refinancing a property. If someone did like a cash out refi and invested in that. And that's like actually a growing trend in my business, is people refining their rentals, like single family rentals, and then investing into our debt fund. An interest rate arbitrage there, or a carry trade. So we need to go like create a bunch of content and stuff like that about this, because clearly this is a big trend. I also have tools on like what's my mix of AUM between all of my funds, how much did various sales reps close, how much did various sources of like lead sources, whether it's like the website or some of our sponsored content buys, like what was the portion of the funds we raised that came from various marketing channels. Like there's 3 dashboards that I have built in Salesforce, which probably have a total of, call it like 24 charts that tell me like 95% of what I need to know about my business, and whether we're on track or we're off track, and what happened last month and how is this month shaping up, and everything like that. Salesforce is also, I think, the leader in reporting and dashboards of any CRM. And that's because it's designed for extremely large companies. And like I said before, like the way that the modern executive works is usually through dashboards and automated feeds. So yeah. I will say that for the average person listening to this show, probably the CRM you should use is Go High Level. And actually that's directly related to the reason I chose Salesforce.com. I chose Salesforce.com because I used to be a Salesforce consultant. That's not the only kind of consulting I did, but that I was really damn good at using Salesforce. So Go High Level is also an extremely powerful CRM, like especially for a small business. but that it gets typically sold to you. Like their model is actually distribution through agencies, like marketing agencies. And the reason that's so important is that chances are, like you as the small business owner, your agency is way better at your CRM than you are. And that when you buy that Go High Level package from your agency or your CRM provider, they can like log in and set it up for you. Like they can log in and schedule your emails and do everything like that. Like for example, salesforce.com doesn't even like have email marketing. For that, I use ActiveCampaign. I'd say another lesson here about ActiveCampaign. The reason we chose ActiveCampaign is that it's good enough. And that, I mean, it's a good email marketing tool. It's a crowded field. There are a lot of email and marketing automation tools out there, very crowded field. Why did we choose ActiveCampaign? It's because both my partner, Chris, and myself have years and years of experience using ActiveCampaign. That's another tool selection tip here from a professional, is that the tool that you and your team are already very good with is almost always the correct tool. And that choosing a tool that no one on the team knows how to use is a massive decision. I mean, in fact, one that for something as serious as a CRM or an email system, it would have to be a just incredible business justification to make that decision of why we would, like, it would be so hard to get me off ActiveCampaign because I'm going to have to go and learn another email marketing automation system. Marketing automation systems are not easy to learn. Like, sure, they all do basically the same generic feature set of like drips and tagging and forms and, marketing automations and lead scoring, but they all do it differently and with their own quirks and their own things that one does well and another doesn't do it all. And like on ActiveCampaign, we all know the different workarounds of like how to do certain things that aren't easily supported. It would be a nightmare for us to move off ActiveCampaign. And so it's just a no question. We use ActiveCampaign, and that in our advisory side of the business where we do marketing advisory, we select ActiveCampaign or starting to select Go High Level, to be honest, because that's the one we know how to use. And like, I can get work done 20 times faster in a system I know how to use than like trying to learn a new system. So, Go High Level, I'd say, is probably, if I was starting over today and I didn't already know how to use ActiveCampaign, or if I was telling someone which CRM they should use and I didn't have a dog in the fight, as in like I wasn't going to like do their work because I'd use ActiveCampaign in that case because I know how to use it, I would recommend Go High Level. I think it's the safest choice for anyone doing CRM and email automations as a small business. And also because your agency is going to be able to log in and like make the changes for you without you having to create them an account. All right, enough about CRM. Let's go to my AI tool. Obviously, can't be recording a podcast about the tools we use without mentioning AI. And I use Claude by Anthropic. I do not use ChatGPT. I use Claude by Anthropic because it's generally regarded as the best writer. And also, Claude was the first of these tools that had something called projects. So what is a Claude? What is a project within Claude? So you guys know that when you're creating, I'll start with a definition of like what context is in ChatGPT or, modern GPTs. Probably misused some jargon there, but context is like what the chat or the AI knows about what you're trying to ask it. And the problem with most tools is that, like, let's say using, and some of the tools have like memory now, except, ChatGPT's memory address is not very big. Neither is Claude's. Claude just released memory more lately. ChatGPT's had it for a while, but I had heard people say that, like, the memory fills up in 2 weeks. Your business is enormously complicated and large. And no matter what business you are, not even mine, like the problem space that you exist in, problem space, more jargon. The context, problem space is just another word for context. There you go again. That any business operates in is stuff of like, what is this deal? And I mean like real estate deal. What is this? Like, what is our company and who works here? How should I sign all of my emails? As in, like, what's my signature? My name is Richard McGirr, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Property Llama Capital. What are the terms of this deal? Like in my debt fund, share class A is this, share class B is this, share class C is this. There's my, like literally 2,000 words of FAQs that we've written about this deal. There's what is the organizational structure of my company? Because we've got Curtis Street Media, the advisory and media company. We've got Property Llama Capital, which is the capital management and OpCo. Then we've got Property Llama Corp, which runs the software. Like all of this is context that if you just open ChatGPT and you start writing, the system doesn't know any of that. And that it will, like, that's why you get really frustrated and it'll like answer a question wrong. And so I think I can trust it at this point. I believe that you understand what I'm talking about and like the frustration of like opening Gemini or something like that. And then you start asking it questions and it like totally doesn't understand you because it doesn't understand the intent of what you were trying to ask it. And it's because it does not have the context that's in your brain. So Claude solves this with something called projects. And so in my system, every single fund, every single client, even like our LinkedIn, even my BEC podcast is its own project. And what I've put in there is all of the project collateral. So for example, in a fund, I like copy and paste all the text from my deal room. Or I then also, usually we record a lot of podcasts about our deals. We go and take the transcript, which is like automatically done by Riverside, the podcasting tool, or, YouTube automatically generates transcripts for any video you upload. I mean, you got to kind of figure out how to pull the transcript out, but go Google it. You can figure it out yourself. We usually do a lot of these interviews. So for every given deal that we do, we usually do 3 or 4 podcasts or webinars. We pull all the transcripts, pull the deal room, and then paste those transcripts as what they're called as artifacts, or they're basically like text documents that we load into each project. So for my debt fund, I've got my debt fund project, and then like we've done 3 webinars, one on the financial model, one on the main opportunity, one podcast on just the background of the management team that are our partners on it. We just put each of those transcripts into the Claude project. And then that way, when I come in and I say like, hey, I need a marketing email written about this, it's one shot, knows already everything about my fund, everything about Property Llama Capital, because I also maintain a what I call business context document, which I used by going into every Claude project and said, summarize this entire project in 1,000 words. Then I copied and pasted every project in the company into like a 6,000 word document called business context, which I occasionally keep up to date, which is everything from like my tech stack, every fund we do, the corporate structure, a description of Property Llama, the software system. Like I said, every fund we work with, every client we work with, the biographies of everyone and all the various team members. That's in a giant business context document. That goes into every single project, by the way. Like every project I have has a copy of the business context document. And that way, when I ask it to write, whether it's a project plan or an email or this, it immediately already knows what I'm talking about. And it just gets right to work and hits the ground like sprinting. I mean, even saying hits the ground running isn't like being detailed enough. So like absolute, just off to the races as soon as I need anything. Already knows everything about the fund, everything about the client, everything about me, my corporate structure, everything like that. And that the other nice thing is that these projects, I am able to share them with my other team members. So we have like I think it's called Claude Teams, Claude for Teams, Claude Pro. I can't remember what it's called. Sorry. But it basically means that all like 5-6 people at Curtis Street Media or at Property Llama each have an account, and I can choose. Not all projects are necessarily shared with everybody, but definitely all of our main fund product and all of our client projects are shared with everyone. And that means when I go and upload like, hey, I just uploaded the latest webinar, or I just uploaded the latest podcast transcription, anyone who comes into that chat later from my team has access to the same body of project work. I mean, this has been one of the biggest transformations in our company. I would say like this Claude and Claude project setup. I literally one day, it's going to sound evil, but we were going to hire a marketing manager because we just produce a lot of content. I mean, we're a content marketing company. That's really expensive. I mean, writing lots of emails and writing deal rooms and lead magnets and podcast scripts and like all kinds of stuff, just incredibly time intensive work. And then I said, Claude actually released projects and I started playing with it. And I showed up to the management meeting and I was like, guys, we're putting this position on ice. we were doing our quarterly goals, and I literally wrote, we are implementing Claude projects, and this is going to be one of the most important IT investments we ever make as a company. It is the future of the way that we're going to work. And everybody kind of looked at me. I mean, I say crazy stuff about technology all the time. That's kind of my role in the business. And everybody looked at me. I showed them a quick like project I'd made, and they were just like, okay, let's go with this. And then I've been completely right. The whole company runs on Claude. Specifically these projects that we have set up for every major work stream or every major project in the company. Again, I come from a project management background, IT, software project management, also known as software development lifecycle, which is like very documentation heavy, highly organized. Because I'll tell you why. The reason it's so, like, software engineers are some of the most expensive people in the world to employ, and every minute and hour of their time needs to be absolutely structured. They should not have any questions. There should be absolutely no question about what they are expected to build and what the software is supposed to do. Because if someone goes and pays you like $5 million to write a piece of software, you better deliver exactly what they expected. So that's like the world that I come from. So like highly organized work streams come at this point pretty naturally to me. And that this Claude projects thing, I mean, and even related to software, I can put, so here, going back to Salesforce, I'm able to export the entire configuration to GitHub, which is a code repository. And I'm actually able, in my Salesforce project, because of course I have a Salesforce project, I actually have it linked to the GitHub repository, which has my current Salesforce configuration, which means every single field in the system, every single API name, all of the objects, like everything about my Salesforce instance, Claude can read. And also in the future, I could hypothetically, though I have not already, connect it to my Jira instance where I manage my Salesforce developers. And I can, when I go and query Claude and say, hey, I'm trying to write a user story about this object. Sorry, that's more jargon. When I'm trying to write a user story about a new field validation rule for opportunities, it's able to go look up into my repository, which has my Salesforce configuration, find the exact field names, write the ticket with exactly all of the information that, like, because the level of detail that developers require to do their work is very high. Like, you can't just say, hey, go build this. They will very rightfully say, I need you to explain this better. So it's able to get all of the exact field names, everything that I'm already talking about. All of this stuff has to be very exact. And it's able to just immediately know the context of my Salesforce instance and then write the ticket for the new feature that I'm trying to build in Salesforce. Okay, so moving on to my content management system. So what is content management? And I'm not talking about WordPress here. So content that appears within an organization is like far more than WordPress blog posts. It's everything from like my sales training manuals to like the statements of work and contracts, project schedules, descriptions of funds, my deal room, email copy that I've written, draft, here's a draft of 20 different emails that I'm going to write. All of that is content, and usually the way people organize that these days is like Google Docs. However, the problem with that structure is that, compare that to navigating a web page or like Wikipedia, right? Notion is basically like a Wikipedia for your company, where I can have links between related documents. In Notion, I can very easily embed things like a PDF or a deck. Like if you paste a link to Google Drive or like Google Sheets or what's it called? Not Google Sheets, Google Slides into Notion, it'll automatically like show the full presentation on the page. If I post a link to a YouTube, it'll automatically like show the YouTube video player and I can play the YouTube video from within Notion. That's just like scratching the surface. I mean, it can do databases. I've heard it described as Microsoft Word on hard mode. That is probably the case, except I would say, unlike a lot of the other recommendations that I've said in this company, you should learn to use Notion, like without a doubt. And in fact, a lot, I even have a client who I run our I have a client portal for them, and they're an investment partner of ours. And they basically said, like, yeah, all the training materials that we, not all, but a lot of the training materials that we use to onboard people to our company, we just send them to the Notion portal that you guys made for us. Because I'm able to share certain pages. So for example, for all my advisory clients or all the funds we work in, I have a shared Notion space where we like collaborate. Sorry, I cringed when I said collaborate because it's such an overly used term in software. But yes, I have our collaborative space in Notion where it goes like statements of work, the contract, recordings of every single meeting. So like, here's the meeting that we had last week. I put all my notes because I use an AI note taker. I'm not going to belabor talking about an AI note taker because I assume that most of the people on this call are using an AI note taker. If you're not, fix that. Enough said. I'm going to let someone else talk about why you need an AI note taker. You just need one. But anyways, once you have your AI note taker and you're recording, every time I have my weekly client meetings, or the weekly, not just external meetings, like our weekly sales meetings, we go download that video recording, create a page on Notion in the sales team area. Here was what was discussed this week. Here were the action items from the notes, everything like that. And like I was saying, I've got this client who's like, oh, when we onboard staff, we just log them into your client portal. And that's actually the most complete repository on information about our products and services that exists in the company. And I'm like, oh, that's flattering. Thank you. But it's the same thing with me. I mean, if someone onboards at Property Llama Capital, I mean, we probably have, this is going to sound like I'm exaggerating, but no, dude, we've got thousands of documents. Probably, okay, this I'm trying to decide if it's true. Probably 1 million words of text. I'd say probably easily. Maybe not much more than 1 million. But like easily 1 million words of text, just because we produce a lot of artifacts. That's the way I was trained to work when I was in management consulting, and that comes down to like managing a client. When you can go give your client a client portal, where you have all of the notes you've ever taken, all of the proposals you've ever written. Here's the status of all your work. People love that. Clients love that. And that's because that's a really effective way to manage an organization. When something's written down, instead of someone coming to me and say, hey, can you explain me this? No, I go send them like 6 Notion links or just log into Notion and search. Have you tried searching in Notion? Like, I'm sure it's written down. Like, we've got everything in the company described in Notion. And like I said, I want to emphasize, we have 5 people on staff at Property Llama Capital, 3 of which are the owners of the company. We're a very small company. We punch very far above our weight in terms of our tech stack and our work management. But I think that our results are a proof that that's worth doing if you're good at this stuff. So what else we got? All right. I wrote down ActiveCampaign here. I already talked about it. I'll just say what stuff that I have on ActiveCampaign, I'll just describe as a like minimum viable CRM setup. You should have an email drip. You should ideally have several email drips for different client avatars or where people are in different stages of the funnel. We have 3 email drips. So, like having 3 email drips is a bajillion times better than having 0. Having 3 is probably 10 times as good as having 1. But I would say that getting more drips than that becomes, declining marginal utility, if you're familiar with the phrase. So that would be, you probably don't need much more than 3 different drips, unless you're just like some insane marketing machine like Russell Brunson. So like, what are email drips? We've got general onboarding if someone comes in through the Denver Investment Real Estate Podcast, Denver Real Estate Investing Podcast, excuse me. We are denverinvestmentrealestate.com though. Gets confusing. So obviously all of that that's my partner Chris's podcast, like his home podcast. He's also a co-host on Passive Pockets on BP. Most of our most of the capital we raise comes from the Denver Investment Real Estate Podcast, Denver Real Estate Investing Podcast. There's another thing. Repeat the brand over and over and over again. That's why when you watch those Liberty Mutual commercials and they just say Liberty, 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 it's one of the funniest ads I've ever heard because I know advertising psychology. And it's just like, yeah, we're going to say the brand 50 times. Like we just wrote a whole ad campaign where we just repeat the brand 90 times and you will never forget the name of this brand. That's not what I'm trying to do here. It's just funny. But so we have a drip for the Denver Real Estate Investing Podcast, people who come in through that or through the website, that our specific Denver investment real estate website. That's of course about investing in Denver and the current opportunities in Denver, of course, of which we think investing in debt funds is one of the best opportunities in 2025. We think, obviously, not financial advice. Then we've got the Property Llama Corp, so the software drip. So that's if someone goes on to propertyllama.com and they sign up for the software and they want to analyze their portfolio. That's a pretty standard software as a service drip where it's like, hey, here's how to use all the different aspects of the feature of the software. And, the point of that is to like get people engaging with our content, because most of that, and the same with the diary list, most of that is links to like old podcast episodes, old YouTube videos, stuff like that, all of our like greatest hits, because we want someone to go from a name on an email list to watching our content. When they watch the content, then they build a relationship with Chris Lopez and Property Llama or myself. It's a parasocial relationship. When you consume someone's content, you start to develop a relationship with them in your head. It's just how the human brain works. Someone talks in your ear for hours, you eventually think that they're your friend. It's kind of weird, but it works. So we've got that drip. And then the third drip we have is for the debt fund. So where this goes, and here's a little hack that you need to be doing. When someone clicks any email, like when we do a webinar promo or a monthly fund update for the debt fund, if someone clicks any link in one of those emails, they get added to the like debt fund interest tag. I'm paraphrasing here. I just don't want to like talk about the fund specifics too much because it doesn't really matter here. And the purpose of this podcast is not me promoting my own funds. But they'll get like debt fund interest tag. And the way I do that, when that happens, they get added to a separate email drip, which right now we have, hold on, doing some head math, 4 months of emails written. I've got 2 months of emails in it right now. The rest are being, we're just in editing, because these drip emails are like the most important emails we'll send, so we are like really working hard on making sure that the copy is good and everything like that. And they're like some of our most heavily edited copy that we've ever produced. So when someone clicks on any link related to the debt fund, they are tagged for that. And then they receive an email about the debt fund every 3 days. So it's like, hey, have you seen our deal room? Hey, here's who debt funds are good for. Hey, have you looked at refining one of your properties and then investing in the debt fund? Here, we made a video about that. Various objection handling, like team bios, frequently asked questions, yada, 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 yada. Yeah. And then let's bring it home. Let's bring it home with another tool, which I would say everybody should use, which is Zapier. The tool that I use, it's probably the highest leverage tool in the business, even though I spend the least amount of time in it, is Zapier. For example, that tagging mechanism I do in Zapier because, like I said, one of the issues with email marketing tools, they all have their own quirks, but I was not able to write a rule and active campaign that says, but I was able to do this in Zapier. So if someone clicks a link, so that's a trigger in Zapier. What is Zapier? I'll just say it. Zapier is a tool which automates and connects different software platforms, like arguably any modern software platform that you use. I mean, SaaS software, not desktop software, from Gmail to your CRM to Calendly to Google Docs and Google Sheets, and every tool, like pretty much every tool connects with Zapier. And what you're able to do is you have triggers. So a trigger is something like received an email, or in my situation, it's clicked a link in the CRM. Then what it does is it's able to like create what's called conditional logic. So someone saying, when someone clicked a link, I'll just talk you through this example. Then what it does is it checks what was the name of that email. I don't mean the subject name, I mean the campaign name. And all of my emails about my debt fund have the word Dynamo in it. And so if the campaign name contains Dynamo, I go and apply to the contact the Dynamo interested tag. And then it goes into Salesforce creates a task for the sales rep to call that person that day. And then that's actually one of the task lists that I watch the most carefully in Salesforce is task expiration is what I call it. So were you able to, because on an average day between I'll get 10 and 20 clicks for someone in one of those emails. And I expect all of those people to be called the same day. In reality, those people should probably be called within 10 minutes. I am just not staffed for that at the moment. I will be soon, but the correct thing is that someone should call those people within 10 minutes. We implemented that workflow 2 weeks ago, and then we just had our weekly sales meeting. It's being recorded on Friday. We've got a close of the week sales meeting and a one-on-one. And the guy said all of his top of funnel calling when he's looking for volume. So obviously priority number one is he's following up with people in pipeline and getting deals closed. But you also got to be doing your prospecting, like filling pipeline at all time. We used to just go through the list top to bottom of like A to Z by last name, calling people and say, hey, how you doing? Do you want to buy some debt funds? Obviously paraphrasing, but essentially that's what it is. It's cold calling. I mean, they're on the list. It's not cold calling, but it's pretty lukewarm calling, ambient temperature calling at best. Now that we have, like I said, call it between like 5 and 40, depending on days when we send emails, click tasks. He's like, I have the same pickup rate, except now when I call these people and they answer the phone, they're like, yeah, I was looking at that fund. I'd like to talk. Like much more ready to have a conversation immediately. So basically like that automation, like that's a Zap. Highest leverage, biggest money making automation in the company, like for sure. How long did it take me to build it? 3 hours to build that Zap. It's a complicated Zap. It's got lots of different conditions and, it's talking to Salesforce, ActiveCampaign, like all this other stuff. That's just one example. I mean, we also have stuff like having to keep in sync the CRM with ActiveCampaign. Like one thing that we do is when opportunities get moved to different pipeline stages, I have a tag in ActiveCampaign that's get added. So it's like debt fund soft commit submitted. And then that goes to debt fund doc signed. Yada, yada, yada. I'll even open it. Like what other Zaps do I have right now? Okay, by far the majority of my Zap content is this link processing. Oh, I've got another one in here. So every time a fund is closed, I send the conversion to my Metapixel. That's another Zap, so that I'm building a pixel audience on Facebook in real time of people that have closed won. That's useful for things like conversion audiences for lookalike audiences. What is that? That is creating demographic profiles for Facebook of like, these are the type of people who invest in my deals. So one of the easiest audiences when you're setting up targeting on Facebook is you go tell Facebook, find people that are statistically similar to people that have already bought from you. I mean, this is like the ads 101 for the past 10 years is basically this. However, normally you'd have to like upload a CSV every once in a while. With this Zap, I have it so that anytime someone books a Calendly appointment with one of my sales reps, and that Calendly appointment is a sales type meeting, it gets sent to Facebook and says that this is a lead. Like this is a lead in my business. Or when someone closes with us and they send their investment, I go send that to Facebook saying, hey, this person is one of my customers. They just bought. And you can also send the conversion amount to Facebook. So you can say like, this guy just did $1 million investment and this guy just did a 50K investment. And it's literally like a dollar amount conversion that you send to Facebook. And Facebook will automatically know like, well, I'd rather send you a customer that's gave you $1 million instead of sending you a customer that gave me $20,000. That's something to do on Zapier. I mean, freaking awesome. Oh, yeah, this is getting into it too. I do not have an investor portal. Shocking. Again, this is going to be something I conditioned by saying this is maybe not the right choice for the majority of people on this call. I'll tell you why I don't have an investor portal. Or in a traditional sense, like I do not have a portal subscription where I host a deal room and then have people like create an account and submit their deals. I'll tell you why. It's because we are power users and we value customization and speed. And that at least all the portals that I've used, And like, I'm going to offend somebody out there, and I'm sorry. You feel free to call me and show me your portal. For me, I create my deal room in Notion as a public page, which means that like you don't have to log in to see it. And it has all my YouTube videos. It's easier to edit than any deal room I've ever seen in a portal. It's got a way better editor, way cleaner looking. These days, you can even put Google Analytics on a shared Notion page. The majority of investor portals don't even connect to Zapier. It's just like crazy. A handful do these days, but like I remember shopping for portals 3 years ago, and I was like, "What do you mean you don't have an API? What do you mean you don't connect to Zapier? Like unacceptable. At least in my view, for the way I want to run my business, just totally unacceptable." The other thing is that it's a big pain in the butt to keep the portals updated, like in terms of all the financial data. Now, this is the portal that I do use, so maybe I lied a little. I do use the portal provided by Nav Consulting, my fund admin. However, that's not part of onboarding. We do not take commits through there. The investor doesn't even get access to it until after they've invested. And that's because my fund admin, their job is to do all the accounting and keep the portal updated. And so, yeah, you get that. But when it comes to onboarding, what I do is a Notion page for the deal room, my email system, and then I use Google Forms as my soft commit form. And then when that comes through, it posts a notification into Slack saying we got to get to work. Like your average portal, like doesn't even post to Slack. Like you can't even, like if it doesn't connect to Zapier, then how's it going to go announce in Slack that I just received a soft commit? All kinds of stuff like that. I would say all my tools, here's another thing. I set up all my tools on Zapier usually is where I do this, where I have activity feeds posting in Slack. Like every time I get one of those debt fund clicks, post into Slack. Every time someone submits a soft commit, post into Slack. Every time a deal is updated in Salesforce, and by that I mean like created or moves from one stage to another, post into our sales channel. That to me is the most important part of that is that we are a remote team, and it keeps everybody super motivated, and we all celebrate. Like when a deal moves to close one, all the emojis are like, yeah, we got him. Also, I have a lot of emails auto forward to Slack. Slack is like absolutely our command center or command and control arm. I have 3 monitors on my desktop. One always has Slack, the one on the left. Definitely build activity feeds into Slack. I think that is something that is within the technological capabilities of anybody on this call with Zapier. Especially activity feeds from your CRM, just because they keep everybody motivated. That's like one of the coolest parts is seeing all that stuff. Or if it, comes into Slack, I can go at a team member in a comment and say like, hey, what happened with this guy? What's the word? What's going on with this? And then we have a little conversation about the activity that came through in Slack. Where the hell was I going with this? Yeah, I think that's actually, I think I've hit everything, everyone. This was probably, the metaphor drinking from a fire hose probably comes to mind here. Apologies for that. Hope you all got a ton of value out of this, and if not, like DM me on LinkedIn, say like, hey, you were kind of talking about this. Like, what did you mean? If you guys want me to do any deep dives on any of these platforms or like more case study type stuff about like a really high value automation, let me know. Could be fun. I'm actually quite interested to hear feedback on this episode. And that's usually because you guys can probably tell that I warned you at the beginning that our tech stack setup is going to be intense. It's real intense. Yeah. So give me your feedback. I want to know what you guys thought. Like, was this just over your head? Did you tune out within like 2 minutes? Let me know. I hope you didn't. So, all right, everybody. I'm going to see y'all at Best Ever Conference. Go get your tickets, besteverconference.com. Use the discount code podcast10, all caps at checkout for 10% off. I'll see you guys in Salt Lake City.